Now, join us on the program right now. Another voice we love to hear, Chief Investigative Reporter for Fox 5 in D.C., Emily Miller is with us. Emily, how are you?
I'm great, Cam. How are you?
I am good. Thank you for coming on the program today. And, we're sitting here talking about the release of Bo Bergdahl over the weekend. There are so many stories right now with this administration. It's hard to keep track of them all. And this is one of my concerns about Operation Choke Point. And so I'm so glad that you're writing about this today because, again, with the VA scandal, with Benghazi still out there, new developments in Fast and Furious, I don't want people to not hear about and not know about Operation Choke Point, because this is a really scary thing that the administration is doing.
Right, it is. And what it is Operation Choke Point was started by the Justice Department last year in 2013, ostensibly to get rid of fraud for consumers and fraudulent businesses. And so the idea was to get third-party players and banks to sort of choke them, is to get them to stop taking payment from these fraudulent companies. Like highly illegal things like prostitution and escort services and gambling and things like that. But also, people who promise to take advantage of the elderly for these long-term schedules and all that kind of stuff. Well, it turns out that, a bunch of firearms companies and ammunition companies were sort of in retail sales were saying, we just got cut off from our bank, or we just got cut off from our credit cards. We don't know what's happening. We can't operate. And those stories got reported. And then so Darrell Issa and the Oversight Committee in the House started investigating. And they subpoenaed all these documents from the Justice Department, got about 900 pages of documents, and then released a report on Thursday saying there's clear evidence that the Justice Department was going after businesses that they just deemed high risk, which what is of some fraudulent companies and illegal companies, but also includes firearms companies and ammunition companies that are fully legal and have been targeting them and, quote, choking them off from their banks so they go out of business. And the NRA has been, getting a lot of stories of this, and the NSSF, which represents these companies. And so this report really triggered in the House an amendment that night to an appropriations bill, amendment by Representative Lusemeyer, who I think has been on your show, and it said no more funds can be used for Operation Choke Point. And of course, that's for the next fiscal year, and it has to get through the Senate, it has to get through the Congress. So it's, at this point, just the word of the House. But I talked to the Justice Department, and they absolutely deny everything in the report. They say Eric Holder did not know about this. They said we've never gone after anyone as illegal activity. We're only going after fraudulent and illegal activity, and that we will. And the Justice Department spokesman I talked to said we're going to continue to do this. We're not stopping. So, you've got a bit of a standoff here between those two groups, and I keep hearing from people saying this happened to me, firearms retailers, and I think a lot of people in the Second Amendment world are saying, well, this administration, the Obama administration, wanted to get gun control through the Senate last year, failed, and is trying to do this sort of backdoor way of going after these manufacturers or these retailers. Cam?
Yeah. No, absolutely, and that's the thing is that it is this backdoor way. It's the threat against the banks, and using the subpoena power under this law that was originally designed to help these institutions against individuals committing fraud. This was a law passed in the aftermath of the savings and loan scandal. But now the Justice Department is using it and saying, look, if you're doing business with entities within this industry, well, these are high risk industries for fraud. So we can subpoena you, go through all of your records to look for fraud here in these industries. And that's again. So if you're a bank, you're not doing anything wrong. Do you really want a DOJ subpoena? Covering,
Right.
It's much easier to say, look, I'm sorry, it's not you. You haven't done anything wrong, but it's the industry that you work in, and that's what these banks are telling these businesses.
Exactly. Like we don't want the federal government coming after us, and I think that's why you see today so many people are talking about this story, because it sort of came out at night last Thursday night, and you've been talking about Cam for a while, but it really, because I think because of so many scandals, it really hasn't risen to, obviously it hasn't risen to mainstream media, but in general, people don't know about it, but people are shutting down their businesses over this, and I think it goes to the larger picture of how sort of this distrust of the federal government and the federal government abuse of power, and we saw that in the IRS scandal when they This administration went after conservative and Tea Party groups deliberately because they disagree with them, and now you have to wonder why in these documents that were released by the Justice Department or subpoenaed from the Justice Department, and they have a list of, quote, high-risk industries, firearms and ammunition are included in that. They're not high risk. They're perfectly legal, obviously, except for the criminals on the streets, but I don't think the Justice Department is going after them. Well, they should be. That's who they should be going after. But that, it's this sort of abuse of power. And like you said, if you're a legitimate company, a legitimate bank doing legitimate business, but you've got the IRS on your back, you've got the Justice Department on your back. You want to get them off, you cut off business.
Yep.
And the question is
again, that's what we're.
How does it get resolved at this point? And the House has acted, and the House has said no more in the next fiscal year can Justice spend on any of this. The Justice is saying we're doing it, we're doing what's legal, and we're not stopping. And unless that appropriations bill goes through with Mr. Lutemeyer's amendment, they will continue to do this.
Absolutely. It is interesting. I know the administration is saying, yeah, we've got the power to do this, and I realize the wheels of justice grind slowly, but is there a legal remedy, and where would it come from? I mean, would it come from, these folks within the industries that are getting the letters, or would it come from the banks themselves who would say, hey, we think this is an improper reading of the law here? What the Justice Department is doing is, not allowed by law. Where would that challenge come?
I don't see the banks standing up to the Justice Department because what's in it for them? It's so much easier for them with the third-party payments. It's so much easier for them to just cut off business. I mean, it's not going to be a massive amount. Where you're going to see the lobbying and the defense is going to come from NSSF, National Shooting Sports Foundation, which represents firearms manufacturers and ammunition manufacturers and retailers, and the NRA, because of the force the NRA has in Washington and relationships they have, that they can keep bringing these things to light and the contacts. And so I think it's those groups, the advocacy groups and trade union groups that are going to have to represent these companies and these people, a lot of them are individuals and, one business company, one-man company, small business, because, when you're a bank and you have the Justice Department all over you, it's much easier just to drop the company.
Yep, absolutely. And I think that's what the administration is counting on, that, these banks will choose the path of least resistance. Because, and it makes sense. I mean, again, if you're a banker, you didn't get into banking to be a political activist and to, right wrongs. You got in there to bank. And so it is easier to dump that customer. Thankfully, as you say, the House is paying attention to this, but again, the real stop is going to come when you have an administration that doesn't do something like this.
Yeah. And the people, American people say, you can look at the polls, and FoxNews.com did a poll recently or they do it regularly, on do you trust the federal government? And in the past 5 years, the distrust of the federal government has gone from 54% to 60%. So the majority of people in this country don't trust the federal government. And it comes from things like this, like the IRS scandal, like Fast and Furious, all these sort of abuse of executive powers and the size of the federal government, Obamacare, all these sort of invasions into people's lives. And, I think you're going to see probably in 2014 in the elections, that's going to be the issue, is the size and scope of the federal government and the power of the federal government in every aspect of people's lives. And, when we have every agency in one like the Justice Department, which is a terrifying agency to cross, of getting into this, and where we go from here specifically on Operation Choke Point. I've asked ISIS committee; they're not doing anything further. They've done their investigation. They've made their report. So what it's going to have to be is outside groups bringing to light, or reporters, bringing to light companies that are fully legal that have been refused access or refused to operate with their certain bank, and then maybe case by case, and at some point this appropriations bill will pass, probably not till the fall, and then it'll be illegal for the Justice Department to be using funds for this. But then you have to look at enforcing it. How do you enforce that when Eric Holder is still going to be Attorney General?
Absolutely. Listen, Emily, I know we're going to continue talking about this because, as you say, I don't think this operation is going away. But I'm glad you be with us on the program, and I hope we get to see you again soon.
Thanks. Talk to you soon.